So last year, people were confused by my versions of these lists. They didn't understand why I limited the pool of figures I could select a best and worst of year from so much. For those who weren't here or don't remember, I am only going to be considering figures that released for the first time ever this year. No re-releases, no redecos, and no retools, unless they are exceptionally heavy ones. This is obviously a lot more restrictive than most other reviewers out there, and the reason for that is pretty simple. I don't want to make the what was the best of my year list. I want to make a time capsule of what the year was like in the fandom. Back collecting is fun and all, but covering that, redecos, retools, and re-releases of older figures doesn't give you an overview of this year. Obviously, I didn't buy every figure from 2022, so despite my best efforts, it's not going to be a perfect list, but I think I probably did get pretty close to buying all the best figures from this year. So anyways, let's take a look back on the last year of the Transformers. And if you're wondering why I'm doing the best first and not the worst, it's because you guys treat my negative videos like an event. So this is the order that you voted on last year. Welcome to the top 10 figures of 2022, which was just a fucking banger of a year in the fandom. One of the best in the history of the entire franchise. Remember how good Chug was most of the year? Remember the bunch of evil scientists from videos prior? Like Shockwave? Not in this video. Tarantulas? Not in this video. Giaxus? Not in this video. That's how good 2022 was. Excellent figures that would have made this list any other year getting muscled off through relentless competition. I wish I could include more Chug stuff on this list. Hasbro had a great year, but third party had an amazing one. So, for one of the only times official Hasbro products are going to be grazing this list, number 10, 86 Sludge. This figure deserves to be so much higher on this list, and at the same time, it doesn't deserve to be anywhere near it, because buying this thing is like playing Russian roulette. Hasbro's quality control has gone out the window, and Sludge has got to be the most tragic victim of it. You can luck out like me and get a near flawless version, or you can get what seems to be the more common experience of a figure that's got such loose joints it can't even stand. I have seen people who bought and returned versions of this figure multiple times trying to get a functional one just to give up on having any version of it ever because they are so sick of the unreasonable amount of effort going into getting one. And that's just heartbreaking, because not only are they missing out on completing an 86 Dinobots display, which would be unbelievably satisfying to look at on its own, they just go so well together, but they are missing out on potentially the best Sludge figure of all time. Yeah, it's got the 80 sickness with the Great Khali's face, but this poses great for a Sludge, it's incredibly accurate, it looks cool as hell, one of the only figures to ever try to capture the show appearance in alt mode, and it's doing a good job of that too, but that transformation is just out of this world. Not only is this guaranteed to be the best Sludge transformation of all time, it's also very likely the best Dinobot transformation of all time. And in the end, it's not fair to us that this figure can't be higher, but I can't in good conscience put it any higher than number 10 because of that QC. And now for the last Chug figure to grace the 10 best of the year. And believe me, I wish this could be higher. I also wish I had time to review this last year. It's number 9, Legacy Inferno. I hate to give you previews of videos that haven't happened yet, but Legacy Wave 3 finally hit a home run. I can't speak to all of Wave 3, as I've yet to get every last figure despite my best efforts, but it seems like all of Wave 3's suck was sacrificed on the altar of making this thing great. It's a big Voyager. It looks like the character with very little of the Kingdom stylization tainting it, it feels great, no QC ruining it, and oh, it's one of the best posing Chug figures to come out in years. Maximums on everything, specialty joints just to make sure the wrists are still mobile, and an opening and closing mouth that is such a love letter to the character, its inclusion is both mandatory and not guaranteed at all in a slightly worse reality. The biggest drawback in robot mode is the bug legs getting hung up on themselves, as all bug formers seem to. Then the transformation isn't the best thing in the world. It's a little janky, and obviously the alt mode isn't accurate because they weren't going for accuracy, but at the very least it's a cute ant mode. Reminds me of a guinea pig honestly, but I think more people are going to be reminded of Auntie from Honey I Shrunk the Kids. It's got a little posability with some up and down at the head and torso, plus the mandibles work. This is easily one of the most enjoyable Kingdom era beast formers. And now, it feels depressing and unfair to say, but it's all third party from here on out. So number 8, New Age Skyfire. I struggled not putting Inferno over this, but the sad fact of the matter is, this deserved the higher slot. It's a stunningly accurate robot with equivalent posing, better in some areas and worse in others, though it's legend scale, so it might be undersized for your collection, but it is a big Legends. It's well constructed and high quality, the shoulders are a little irritating with the way that you have to manually adjust the pauldrons, and the backpack loves unpegging, but those are nitpicks. I've seen people really in love with this transformation, but I wouldn't call it great myself. There's a bit of clunk and frustration to it, some aspects are just a little hard to keep straight in your head, and the backpack was alien enough to me that I needed directions, which is abnormal to say the least. It's mostly fine, but not a highlight. And the alt mode is pretty great. It feels like maybe it's a bit skinny, but at the same time, every now and then, the shots did make him look like that. My biggest gripe, as always, is the nose cone. I will never stop saying that the exact shape of this feature is the key to this mode looking right. So having it neck down like this is a bit crippling. Otherwise, this is an excellent figure if you're down for the scale. Number 7, Magic Square Optimus 2.0. This is a figure with the stone-cold potential to be the best Optimus of all time, if it's just done in better materials. If it were, the worst I could say is that the back panel is kind of ugly, but easily ignorable. And there's a slightly higher degree of faux forming in the transformation than I'm happy to have. But otherwise, this is the most posable Optimus of all time, which makes this the most posable Transformer of all time. It's very accurate, it's got a good transformation that's only brought down by its comparison to the previous version of this figure, which had the best Optimus transformation ever, and then the alt mode is very solid. It doesn't have the stripe, and it's got a more tolerable truck bed for some people. It's so close to being a perfect home run. But the plastic they used at this scale just causes so many problems. From making the figure ugly, to making it squishy where it shouldn't be, to making the transformation harder, to, I hear, causing long-term durability issues, like the ratchets having the potential to wear out. A re-release of this can only be better, but it's already amazing. Number 6. Iron Factory Grimlock. I don't even know what more to say about this thing than I already did. It poses excellently, having more range in every single one of its joints than normal, and with a high number of specialty joints. The negative points are that it's sharp as shit and it hurts your hands, the tolerances are too tight, compounding that little problem, and the transformation isn't exactly great. I mean, I got a step correct, and it felt so wrong that I had to look at the directions to confirm that I was in fact right in what I was doing. But the positives outweigh those negatives, and those positives are, holy shit, this thing just looks so cool! Just look at it! Look at it and tell me it's not the coolest thing you've ever seen! Oh my god, it's so cool! Both modes are so cool! Number 5. Deformation Space Blaster. This year, we finally got the definitive blaster. We don't need your ugly, uncanny, bloated-headed one there, fans toys. We have the one. We're done. The way they chose to paint this figure in a matte scheme, not gonna lie, is a little unsightly. However, the sculpt is about as on point as you could dream of, the posing is top tier with several specialty joints, really only missing butterflies at the shoulders, the transformation is actually really fun and easy, and the boombox mode is perfect. Like, what more do you want? Turning dials? It fits the tapes, it looks great, and it feels great. This is trying to be the masterpiece Soundwave of blasters, and while it doesn't quite reach those highs, it's getting incredibly close. Number 4. Transart's Megatron. Transart's makes an amazing product. Transart makes an amazing product for an amazing price. They, on their own, prove that this hobby has no business being as expensive as it is. Because they demonstrate figures as big as the next biggest thing, with more paint than anything else, different kinds of paint than anybody else, with as much articulation as everything else, and more accessories than anybody else, plus as much die-cast and ratchet joints as anybody else, can cost less than everyone else. A huge masterpiece Transmetal Megatron as nice as it could be made, $140. Need I say more? It poses excellently, though some areas are a little loose. It looks gorgeous, just mouth-wateringly beautiful, and both modes are unerringly accurate. Transformation is a little frustrating because the parts forming isn't the best integrated, as is attaching the separate tail weapon. The knees could use a little more range, and I've heard that there are breakable parts on this, yet I'm still shocked that this isn't higher on this list. And before we get into the top 3, some honorable mentions. G-Axis. Quite frankly, normally I tell you what was holding these back, preventing them from making the cut, but as with all the runner-ups this year, it's not that there was anything wrong with them, it's just that there were so many even more excellent figures this year. Tarantulas, excellent, outcompeted. Bulkhead, excellent, outcompeted. MMC Deathsaurus. This one is actually being kept off the list this time by the crippling fact that it just couldn't decide on which version of the character it wanted to be. An IDW robot mode with a G1 alt mode was a bad idea. But now number 3, Metal Slug Transformer. I thought this was a shoo-in for the number 1 when I first got it. And while it is absolutely excellent, such a thrill, so much quality, and love, and skill, and engineering packed into an astonishing $80, I did still find it start to wear on me the more I reviewed it. The ratchets are awesome, holding the figure's position great. They also make it exhausting to pose and transform when they are so strong. I mean, just doing it on its own is kind of a pain, but being at arm's length from it behind a camera is a bit of a nightmare. And while the transformation is pretty good, there's some real clearance issues that makes me worried about paint rubbing off. Because this whole thing, even the parts that don't look painted, are. So it's both frustrating to get to move and also scary. But don't let my complaining get to you. This is still, despite that, easily the 3rd best figure of the year. Number 2, MMC First Aid. Oh, come on, you all knew this was going to be on here. The thumbnail for the video implied that God created this in place of Adam, and I struggled not putting this as the number 1. MMC has nailed it out of the park once again, releasing a combiner limb so good that even though I don't give half a shit about Defensor, I am salivating to finish this set. This may be their best limb bot yet. He looks flawless, he poses like only MMC can make a figure do, where it's so effortless and pleasing. Transformation is shockingly simple and remarkably fun, despite the fact that this has to turn into a combiner limb, which is also stupidly easy to do, and this limb mode also poses better than almost all other combiner limbs out there, without parts forming. This figure is a divine gift from the Pantheon up on MMC's Mount Olympus. The only flaw, and this is a big flaw, on mine is that I can't get the rear of the alt mode to stay tabbed together. The friction of the tabs is not outperforming the amount of pressure being put on them. But that leaves the number 1 as Transart's Rat Trap. Oh, didn't see that coming, did you fuckers? I never even liked this robot mode for Rat Trap. I've always preferred his original look, but that doesn't stop this from being Transart's best work yet, as Rat Trap once looked in the mirror and said, "Hey, I'm gorgeous." This is beautiful, impeccable, flawless. The metallic paint they used forces me to weep. The chrome makes me weak in the knees. The articulation is amazing, the gimmick's unbelievable. Even stuff he didn't have in the show, like the demolition charges from his previous robot mode, still show up here. They gave him gimmicks from other designs just to give him more, as well as a mountain of accessories to the point where I don't even know what they're all for. The backpack is pretty big, but understandably so, and the full-forming rat head, disgusting. But you know what? I get it this time, because like everything with this figure, they put their whole ass into it. Transformation has its problems. It's not the smoothest endeavor, and you're worried about the chrome the whole way through, but I can't argue with the rat mode. Pauldrons were fake so they can mash shift the head up to be bigger, give it articulated ears, and an opening mouth. This is perfect. It's beautiful. It's exactly what it should be. It's not a brick. Posing is great for a beast former. It even has its rat racer mode. I struggle to not cry gazing upon this thing's radiant glory. And this was $75. Everyone else, raise your game. And last year, I said that 2021 and 2019 might go down as two of the best years for the Transformers ever. And now I have to add 2022 to that list as well. This was hard to make, not because there weren't enough figures to put on it, but because there were way too many, to the point where I had to get real nitpicky just to figure out the order this list went in. My only regret is that there wasn't more chug on here. Hasbro had an amazing year, but everyone had an amazing year this time. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.